Julia, a thoughtful and observant woman in her mid-30s, her husband Mark, and her sister-in-law Tessa, who is visiting for the weekend. Julia and Mark have been married for 7 years, and while their relationship has had its share of ups and downs, they've managed to maintain a semblance of harmony. Tessa, Mark's younger sister, is lively and free-spirited, and she shares a close bond with Julia, often visiting their home to catch up and spend time together. Mark, a software developer with a penchant for meticulousness in his professional life, often tries to bring the same level of precision to his home life, sometimes to the annoyance of Julia, who values spontaneity and flexibility. Their contrasting personalities have been a source of minor conflicts, but also of growth, as they've learned to navigate their differences with mutual respect. Tessa's visits are always looked forward to by Julia as they bring a refreshing dynamic to the household, helping to bridge gaps and smooth over routine life's monotony. This particular visit, however, is set to be different, revealing undercurrents in Julia and Mark's relationship that neither had fully acknowledged. As Tessa steps into their home with her usual cheerful demeanor, little does she know that this weekend will unveil more than just family bonding. Julia and Mark's marriage has been characterized by a blend of deep affection and underlying tensions. In the early years, their differences seemed trivial, even charming, as they navigated through the honeymoon phase of their relationship. Mark's methodical nature perfectly complemented Julia's more impulsive style, creating a balance that both found enriching. However, as the years passed, the novelty of their differences began to wear thin. Mark's need for control and order sometimes clashed with Julia's desire for spontaneity, leading to frustrations that were often brushed under the rug rather than fully addressed. Despite these growing tensions, they maintained a functional relationship, focusing on their shared goals and mutual love rather than the simmering issues between them. Financial stress added another layer of strain to their marriage. Mark's career was stable but demanding, requiring long hours that often left Julia feeling neglected and taken for granted. Julia, a part-time graphic designer, cherished her flexibility but sometimes struggled with the insecurity of freelance work. These pressures occasionally surfaced in their interactions, revealing cracks in their marriage that both were hesitant to openly confront. Their communication had deteriorated over time, with both parties often opting for silence or superficial conversations instead of engaging in meaningful discussions about their feelings or concerns. This communication gap widened with time, creating a subtle but persistent distance between them. Despite these issues, Julia and Mark shared a commitment to their marriage, each deeply caring for the other, but unsure how to bridge the growing emotional gap. They both hoped that time and effort would eventually smooth over the rough patches, clinging to the moments of happiness and compatibility that reminded them of better times. As Tessa arrived for her visit, both Julia and Mark were internally hopeful that her presence might bring some much-needed lightness and distraction from the unspoken issues that lingered between them. Tessa's arrival at Julia and Mark's home brought an air of excitement and a much-needed distraction from the underlying tensions. Known for her vibrant personality and knack for lightening up any room she entered, Tessa was both Julia's sister-in-law and one of her closest friends. Her visits were always a highlight for Julia, providing not just company, but a chance to engage more deeply in the creative and fun activities that both women enjoyed. This visit was particularly special as Tessa had just returned from a trip abroad, bringing with her stories and souvenirs that promised to make for an entertaining weekend. Julia looked forward to the distraction from her routine life and the simmering issues with Mark. Tessa's presence usually helped to mitigate the couple's growing distance, as she brought out a more carefree side of Mark that Julia missed deeply. The plan for the weekend included a mix of leisurely activities like visiting local art galleries, a hobby both Julia and Tessa shared, and relaxing evenings spent cooking and watching movies together. These plans were not just about fun. They were also a subtle strategy by Julia to foster a warmer, more connected environment at home. As Tessa settled in, sharing tales of her adventures and the interesting people she had met, Julia felt a sense of relief wash over her. It was as if Tessa's stories transported her away from the daily grind and the unspoken grievances that had started to color her perception of her marriage. Mark, too, seemed more relaxed with his sister around, laughing more freely and engaging in conversations that went beyond his usual brief exchanges. However, the lighthearted mood of the weekend was soon to be tested. What started as a simple morning routine the following day would unexpectedly turn into a revealing ordeal, challenging the dynamics between the three of them and forcing hidden feelings into the open. The morning after Tessa's arrival began like any other weekend morning in Julia and Mark's home, but with an added sense of cheerfulness due to their guest. Mark had taken on the role of making breakfast, something he did with precision and pride. The smell of fresh coffee and toast filled the kitchen, and the sound of sizzling bacon hinted at a hearty meal to come. As part of his routine, Mark also prepared coffee for everyone, knowing just how Julia and Tessa liked theirs. However, this morning, as Julia walked into the kitchen and greeted everyone, she noticed something unusual about the coffee Mark handed her. There was an odd smell emanating from her mug, an unusual, almost chemical scent that immediately made her wary. Julia's initial reaction was confusion mixed with concern. She subtly sniffed the coffee a few more times to make sure she wasn't imagining things. Mark seemed oblivious to her hesitation, busy chatting with Tessa about the plans for the day. Not wanting to create a scene or accuse Mark of anything without cause, Julia decided to watch and wait before saying anything. Her mind raced with possibilities. Could it simply be a new brand of coffee? Or had something accidentally fallen into the brew? The smell was distinctly off-putting, and her intuition told her something was not right. Glancing over at Tessa, who was cheerfully sipping her coffee, Julia quietly contemplated her next move. In a moment of quick thinking, she decided to swap her mug with Tessa's while Mark was turned away, focusing on the food. She reasoned that if her suspicions were unfounded, Tessa would not notice anything amiss. This swap, she thought, would be a harmless way to test her concerns without alarming anyone. Once the mugs were swapped, Julia watched closely as Tessa took a sip from the switched mug. Her sister-in-law's reaction in the next few moments would be crucial in determining whether Julia's worries were justified. With the mugs now swapped, Julia held her breath and observed Tessa closely. As Tessa took a sip from the switched mug, the one with the strange smell, Julia watched her face for any sign of recognition or disgust. However, Tessa simply continued chatting animatedly, completely unaware of the change. Julia's anxiety slightly eased seeing Tessa's non-reaction, but she remained vigilant, puzzled by the lack of any noticeable response. Was it possible that she had overreacted to the smell, or was Tessa just being polite, not wanting to criticize the coffee in front of Mark? As breakfast continued, Julia kept a close watch on Tessa, looking for any signs of discomfort or illness that might emerge from drinking the suspicious coffee. Minutes ticked by, and Tessa seemed perfectly fine, laughing and engaging in the morning's conversations without any sign of distress. This observation brought a mix of relief and confusion to Julia. Relief, because Tessa appeared unaffected by the coffee, suggesting that whatever was off about the smell might not be harmful. But confusion lingered because the smell was undeniably odd, and Julia couldn't dismiss her initial instinct that something was wrong. Trying to maintain a normal demeanor, Julia engaged in the breakfast conversation, all the while ruminating on what her next steps should be. The lack of any adverse reaction from Tessa suggested that confronting Mark directly about the coffee in front of Tessa might lead to unnecessary drama. However, Julia knew she needed answers about the unusual smell. As breakfast wound down, Julia decided she would address the issue with Mark privately, hoping to clarify her concerns without causing a rift. The morning's events had subtly shifted the atmosphere from cheerful to one of quiet introspection for Julia, as she pondered the implications of her suspicions and how best to address them in a way that would maintain the peace and trust within their family. After breakfast, as Tessa excused herself to freshen up and prepare for the day's activities, Julia found the opportunity she needed to speak with Mark alone. With her heart beating slightly faster than usual, she approached in the kitchen while he was cleaning up. "Mark, can we talk for a minute?" Julia asked, her voice steady but carrying a serious undertone. Mark looked up from the dishes, sensing the gravity in her tone. "Of course, what's up?" he responded, drying his hands on a towel and turning to face her fully. Julia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "The coffee you made this morning, it had a very strange smell. I swapped mugs with Tessa just to see if it was just me, but she didn't react at all. Did you notice anything different when you made it?" Mark's expression changed slightly, a flicker of something passing over his face before he composed himself. "No, I didn't notice anything odd. Maybe it was just a bad batch of coffee," he suggested, his voice a mix of confusion and defensiveness. Julia watched him closely, trying to gauge his sincerity. "It didn't smell like coffee at all, Mark." "It was something else," she pressed, needing him to understand her concern wasn't trivial. Mark paused, looking away briefly before meeting her eyes again. "Julia, I honestly didn't smell anything off. I'm sorry if it upset you. I can throw out that batch and get a new one if it makes you feel better." Julia felt a mix of frustration and relief. His response was plausible. yet something in the way he initially reacted made her uneasy. "Please, let's just make sure it doesn't happen again." "It really worried me," she said, deciding to leave the issue there for the moment but vowing to herself to stay alert. Mark nodded, reaching out to squeeze her hand. "Of course, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. Let's just enjoy the weekend with Tessa, okay?" Julia nodded, managing a small smile as she pulled her hand away gently. The conversation had eased some of her anxiety, but had not completely dispelled her doubts. She resolved to keep an eye on such occurrences in the future, hoping it was indeed just a one-off incident. As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Mark's reaction than he was letting on. The incident, seemingly minor, had planted a seed of doubt that Julia knew would linger until she could truly understand what had happened that morning. After their initial confrontation, the atmosphere between Julia and Mark was slightly strained. As they moved through the day, participating in activities planned with Tessa, Julia's mind was never far from the morning's incident. Her suspicion, albeit dulled by Mark's assurances, had not entirely dissipated. Later that evening, after Tessa had retired to her room, Julia decided to revisit the conversation with Mark. She felt that his previous explanation was too dismissive and needed further clarification to ease her lingering doubts fully. "Mark, about this morning," Julia started as they sat down on the sofa after dinner, her tone more composed but still serious. "I've been thinking. It's not like you to be so casual about something that concerned me. Can we talk a bit more about it?" Mark sighed, recognizing the importance of this issue to Julia. He turned to face her, his expression more open and sincere than it had been in the morning. "Julia, I want to be honest with you," he began, hesitating for a moment as he searched for the right words. "I did try a new cleaning solution for the coffee maker last night. I thought I rinsed it thoroughly, but maybe some of it was left behind. I didn't smell anything off because I guess I was used to the scent from cleaning." Julia listened intently, her feelings mixed. On one hand, she was relieved to hear a more plausible explanation that didn't imply any malevolent intent. On the other, she was upset that Mark had not taken the situation as seriously initially, especially considering her well-being was involved. "Why didn't you tell me this earlier when I first asked?" Julia queried, her tone reflecting her frustration. Mark looked genuinely remorseful. "I didn't think it was a big deal at first, and I didn't want to worry you unnecessarily. I realize now that was a mistake. I should have been upfront with you. I'm really sorry, Julia." His apology seemed sincere, and Julia felt a portion of her tension ease. However, she was still troubled by how easily such a mistake could happen and how it was handled. "Thank you for telling me, Mark. I appreciate your honesty now, but let's try to be more transparent with each other, especially about things that affect our health," Julia responded, her voice softening as she spoke. "It's important." Mark nodded in agreement. "You're right, and I'll do better. I'm sorry for not being more careful, and I'll make sure nothing like this happens again." They continued talking into the evening, discussing how they could improve their communication and ensure they were both more attentive to each other's concerns. This incident, while minor, served as a catalyst for them to evaluate and strengthen their relationship dynamics, promising to be more vigilant and open in the future. As Julia and Mark continued to discuss their communication and the incident, Julia felt a growing sense of relief that the situation was an honest mistake rather than something more sinister. However, she couldn't help but reflect on the importance of transparency and safety in their daily lives. The conversation prompted them to implement new practices around household duties, especially those involving health and safety. A few days later, Julia decided to take a more proactive role in managing household tasks that involved chemical products or food preparation. She suggested they both attend a local safety workshop that covered basic household safety, including proper storage and usage of cleaning chemicals. Mark agreed, recognizing this as an opportunity to show his commitment to making amends and ensuring such incidents wouldn't recur. The workshop proved to be eye-opening for both of them. They learned about common mistakes in handling household products and simple ways to prevent accidents. This experience not only brought them closer, but also gave them practical knowledge to enhance their home life. In the weeks that followed, Julia noticed a significant improvement in how Mark handled responsibilities around the house. He was more careful and consistently checked in with her about any new products or changes he made. This effort from Mark helped rebuild Julia's trust, and she felt more at ease. Their approach to handling household tasks became more collaborative. They set up a small whiteboard in the kitchen where they noted down any chemicals used in cleaning and any potential allergens in food items. This practice helped them keep track of their activities and ensured both were informed. One evening, while they were updating their whiteboard, Mark turned to Julia and said, "I really appreciate how he handled everything. I know I should have been more careful, but I'm glad it brought us to a better place in how we manage our home and communicate." Julia smiled, feeling genuinely content with how they had turned a concerning incident into a strengthening of their partnership. "I agree. It's brought us closer, and I feel like we're a better team now," she responded. Reflecting on the entire experience, Julia felt a sense of accomplishment. Not only had they navigated a potentially dangerous situation safely, but they had also used it as a catalyst for growth and improvement in their relationship and home life. What started as a troubling morning with a mysterious coffee smell had unfolded into an unexpected journey towards mutual understanding and care. This incident highlighted how challenges, when approached with honesty and a willingness to improve, could enhance trust and cooperation, making their marriage stronger and more resilient. The incident with the strange-smelling coffee and the subsequent discussions about household safety had a profound impact on Julia and Mark's relationship. It served as a wake-up call that even small misunderstandings or lapses in communication could have significant consequences. The effort they both put into improving their communication and joint management of household tasks not only enhanced their daily lives, but also deepened their mutual respect and trust. With these positive changes, Julia felt more connected to Mark than she had in months. They rediscovered aspects of their partnership that had been overshadowed by routine and misunderstanding. Their evenings spent planning and discussing household matters became a cherished part of their routine, often accompanied by lighthearted jokes and shared laughter, reminiscent of their early days together. The incident also affected Julia's relationship with her sister-in-law, Tessa. Once Tessa learned about the mix-up with the coffee mugs and how it led to a significant improvement in Julia and Mark's relationship, her admiration for Julia grew. She saw Julia not only as a sister-in-law, but as a strong and wise figure who could handle challenges with grace and turn them into opportunities for growth. Tessa expressed her appreciation for Julia's handling of the situation during one of their phone calls. "You really handled that with so much class, Julia. I'm impressed by how you and Mark turned it around," Tessa said, her voice warm with admiration. "Thanks, Tessa. It was a bit of a scare at first, but I'm really proud of how we dealt with it together." "It's made us stronger, honestly," Julia replied, feeling grateful for Tessa's support and understanding. This affirmation from Tessa not only bolstered Julia's confidence, but also reinforced the bond between the two women. They continue to share a close relationship, marked by mutual respect and open communication, setting an example of how family can support each other through unexpected challenges. Overall, the coffee incident became a pivotal moment in Julia's life. It reaffirmed the values of transparency, cooperation, and the importance of facing problems together rather than in isolation. These lessons rippled through her personal relationships, strengthening bonds and building a foundation of trust and mutual support that would benefit all involved for many years to come. As weeks turned into months, the coffee incident gradually receded into the backdrop of Julia and Mark's lives, but its lessons remained vivid and influential. Julia often found herself reflecting on how a moment of uncertainty had catalyzed such significant changes in their relationship and overall home life. These reflections frequently led her to appreciate the subtler aspects of communication and mutual support that sustain a marriage. In these moments of reflection, Julia realized the true value of confronting issues directly and constructively. She had learned that addressing problems openly doesn't just resolve the immediate issue, but also strengthens the bonds of trust and understanding between partners. This realization was empowering for Julia, who now felt more equipped to handle any future challenges that might arise. Moreover, Julia saw a marked improvement in how she and Mark supported each other's needs and worked together to manage their household, a contrast to the somewhat divided approach they had taken previously. This new level of teamwork brought a renewed sense of partnership and joy into their relationship, making their daily interactions more loving and connected. Julia also recognized the impact of their growth on their daughter, who benefited from the increased harmony at home. She was more cheerful and secure, often commenting on how mommy and daddy are always smiling now. This feedback from their child reinforced for Julia the importance of their improvements, highlighting how their actions shaped their child's environment and emotional well-being. On a broader scale, Julia shared her experiences with friends and family, becoming somewhat of an advocate for open communication and joint problem-solving in relationships. Her story inspired others to examine their relationships and consider how they might also benefit from a more open and cooperative approach. In the quiet moments, perhaps while enjoying a cup of coffee on a peaceful morning, Julia felt grateful for the unexpected journey that began with a peculiar-smelling mug of coffee. It had brought unexpected challenges, but more importantly, it had brought invaluable growth and deeper connections within her family. Each sip reminded her of where they had been and how far they had come, a testament to the power of turning challenges into opportunities for betterment and understanding. As life settled into a new, healthier rhythm, Julia found that the lessons learned from the coffee incident had broader applications beyond her immediate family. Inspired by the positive changes at home, she began to apply these principles of communication and cooperation in other areas of her life, including her work and social interactions. Julia's new approach did not go unnoticed. At work, her ability to handle conflicts and foster collaboration earned her recognition and a promotion. This new role not only challenged her, but also allowed her to implement team-building strategies that emphasized the same values of transparency and mutual respect that had so profoundly benefited her marriage. Meanwhile, Mark, inspired by the changes he saw in Julia and the positive feedback from their community workshops, took a more active role in local initiatives. He started volunteering for community projects that aimed to improve neighborhood safety and cohesion, applying his technical skills to develop solutions that made their community a safer and more connected place to live. The couple also found new joy in hosting gatherings at their home, where they shared their experiences and the importance of communication in relationships with friends and neighbors. These gatherings became popular, strengthening their ties with the community and creating a network of support and mutual learning. Additionally, Julia started a blog to share her journey of overcoming marital challenges and personal growth. The blog quickly gained a following among those seeking inspiration and practical advice on improving their personal and professional relationships. Julia's posts, filled with anecdotes and lessons from her own experiences, resonated with many who were struggling with similar issues. As Julia and Mark continued to grow individually and as a couple, they found that their home became a beacon of positivity and resilience in their community. Their story encouraged others to confront and transform their challenges into opportunities for personal growth and strengthen relationships. Reflecting on the transformative power of that one strange incident, Julia felt a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. She and Mark had not only navigated a crisis but had turned it into a catalyst for widespread positive change. Their journey underscored an essential truth. Within every challenge lies the potential for growth, connection, and a deeper understanding of oneself and others. The positive changes in Julia and Mark's personal lives began to ripple outward, deeply impacting their local community. Inspired by their own experiences and the success of their home gatherings at Julia's blog, they initiated a community development project aimed at fostering open communication and support among neighbors. Julia and Mark, leveraging Mark's technical skills and Julia's creative and organizational talents, set up a series of workshops and events under a program they called Community Connect. These events focused on various themes such as conflict resolution, effective communication, parenting, and financial planning. They aimed to equip participants with the skills necessary to improve their own lives and, by extension, the community at large. The first of these events was a workshop on effective communication in families, which drew a surprisingly large crowd. Many attendees were eager to learn practical ways to improve their family dynamics, having heard about Julia and Mark's transformation. The success of this initial workshop spurred a series of monthly events, each addressing different aspects of community and personal development. Mark developed a website and an app to accompany the Community Connect program, which allowed local residents to register for events, access resources, and communicate with one another about community issues. This digital platform quickly became a hub for local engagement, providing a space for residents to share their stories, challenges, and successes. As the community's involvement grew, so did the visibility of their efforts. Local businesses started sponsoring events, and the local government took an interest, providing grants to expand the program. This external support helped Julia and Mark organize larger-scale projects, including a community garden that brought together people of all ages to work on a common goal, promoting both environmental sustainability and community bonding. Through these initiatives, Julia and Mark not only transformed their relationship and personal lives, but also became key figures in revitalizing their community. Their efforts demonstrated how personal growth and proactive communication could lead to broader social change, enhancing the quality of life for everyone involved. Their journey came to symbolize a powerful message that individual actions and improvements could lead to substantial community benefits. The legacy of their response to a mysterious coffee incident had grown into a movement that empowered and united their entire community, showing that from small beginnings, significant and lasting change could emerge.